There's a lot of cold email. Everybody's doing MPCs. Everybody's doing cold email. Everybody's doing LinkedIn messaging. So really, the differentiator is being yourself. Okay. So having a tight niche, having solid niche market fit is essential to really growing. When you have a good niche and when you have niche market fit, and a lot of people are afraid to niche down, but when you do it, things just completely change. Everything kind of changes. That is one differentiator.
Hi, I'm Courtney Harmon, Director of Industry Relations at Crelate. Welcome to another episode of the Full Desk Experience. Hey guys, Courtney Harmon, host of FDE. We're bringing you a special series of episodes called FDE Plus. Those are going to be highlights from our recent virtual conference, where hundreds of you joined us for an incredible event focused on boosting revenue for 2025. Each of these sessions is packed with valuable insights, expert discussions, and actionable strategies to help you drive growth in your business. Whether you missed the live event or want to revisit each session, we've got you covered. We're going to drop each of these 10 live events to wrap up our year and kick off the new year right. So let's dive into today's session and uncover the key takeaways that will propel your success in the coming year. Stay tuned and let's dive in. I am so excited to have Diane. She is one of our partners here at Crelate. She is a successful entrepreneur, a business coach, and she is here with an impressive track record of building and selling multiple 8-figure staffing agencies over her 25-year career. She's the founder of Diane Prince company, where she empowers recruiting and staffing founders to grow, to scale, and to achieve profitable exits. Diane is going to really talk about how to build an 8-figure recruiting agency and why you can do it. I'm going to jump off. The only reason I'm going to come on is in case anybody has any questions. We'll hold those till the end, but feel free to put them in the chat as Diana's talking. Diane, have a wonderful talk. We'll see you in 45.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Courtney. And by the way, so I'm Diane Prince, as Courtney said. I'm going to put in the chat my link tree, which is all the different ways that you can get help from me. And I like to make these talks really interactive. We have what, like 42 minutes, so it tends to go by really fast. And and at any time, like I'm not a huge slide deck person, so at any time we can even like turn it off and just answer questions. So yeah, I'm super stoked to be here. And so this is always sort of like choose your own adventure, because different people want to hear different things. So I'm gonna get started with my talk, but then just pop in and ask questions as we go. So and then any questions that I don't answer, I will try to answer them on LinkedIn, or feel free to message me and I'll try to answer them publicly on LinkedIn. So as Courtney said, I have built a couple of 8-figure staffing agencies, and now I help other recruiting agency owners do the same thing, recruiting and staffing. And I want to just share a tiny bit about how I got started, because it's very different. You know, if you listen to podcasts, and when people got into staffing and recruiting, they'll typically say, "Oh, just like everybody else, I fell into it." And I have a different story. And which is why I want to tell you that you can also build an 8-figure agency if that's what you want to do. You can build a 9-figure agency. You can stop at a 7-figure agency. You know, you pretty much do it how you want to do it. And the way that I got into the business was very intentional. It wasn't that I didn't have experience in recruiting. I had I temped through college and grad school, so I had an idea of what the business was. I got into it very intentionally in that I wanted to start a business. I did this with my then husband, my first business, and our idea was we had a vision. Okay, and let me move on to the next slide here. Let's see. Okay, so first of all, let's just back up. So I want to address 3 main things. I want to address why you can do it, if this is what you want to do, how you can do it, and what to watch out for. So first we'll talk about, I want to mention about the visioning. Okay. And visioning is super important because you want to build your business around what you want to get out of it. And that's how I got into staffing, because we decided first we wanted to build a business that we could exit. So we thought, well, what if we could find a business that we could actually build and sell and retire in our 30s? That's how it started. That is how I got into it. And then we figured out, we just spent a lot of time trying to figure out, like, what kind of business could we do that? And thought about a lot of different things, a lot of different, I mean, could we do, would it be a restaurant? No, that wasn't the type of business that you could really grow and expand and have proven strategies of actually exiting. So that's how we arrived at staffing. But it wasn't only staffing, it was specifically staffing we did temp staffing in title insurance. So it was very much like we arrived at the niche, and niche is incredibly important. We arrived at the business model and the niche pretty much at the same time. Okay. So I realized this is a unique story, but the point is, if you have the vision, if this is something that you want to do, and when I work with people, I help them to get clear on what their vision is, because a lot of times people start businesses and then they realize they're sort of, you get clients, you get employees, and you're sort of doing it for other people, but you're not really necessarily achieving what you want to get out of it. So really getting clear on what you want to do, and really the reason why temp staffing is, you can do a direct hire agency, you can be very successful at it, but in order to really build an asset, you need recurring revenue, and that is why staffing is the way to do it. Okay, and then feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Okay, so we're going to talk about, so that's the visioning part. So we talked about visioning. Some people, if you do just want to have a direct hire agency and not like just right, but if that's something that you want to do, then it's also, you're going to look at the structure a lot differently, and what your exit strategy is then can be very different. Okay, and that's something that we can that I work on with people as well. So really, you need the visioning, and then people normally ask me, one of the most common issues is biz dev, how to do biz dev. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and then consistency, because consistency is a lot of this is can be monotonous, and consistency is incredibly important. So let's talk about that. So first is believing that you can. Okay, and it's so interesting because sometimes people will say to me, like, they'll come to me and they'll say, I never thought that I could build. I never even thought about 8 figures until I saw your post, or I saw that you did it. And look, like, we're just a recruiting agency, so it's not like, and if you ever listen to Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you Google Arnold Schwarzenegger motivational talk, it is really amazing, because he overcame so many things, and it's just really incredible to. I listened to his. I did a 110-mile hike in the Alps about a year ago, and when the going got tough, we listened to Arnold Schwarzenegger's speech, because it's really it's really inspiring what he ended up doing. So when you look at it, really, like, understanding that you can do it, why not? And people when I started, people who still stuck with it are some of them are billionaires now, because they still stuck with it. For me, I was always about, I love that Mike likes it, the art I'll talk to. And I said, Denise said, you're trying to build a direct hire division. Cool. Yeah, just knowing that. And it just depends. That goes back to your visioning, because for me, I'm more of a business starter. People ask me, like, why are you still doing things? I love to start businesses. I think it's fun. And so, but I'm not necessarily someone who's going to, like, maintain a business for a long period of time. So, that was, but people who did that, there's people that are still there, and they're making a lot of money. So visioning, getting clear on your personal why, we talked about that. And And then business development. So like a lot of people ask me questions about business development. Just put in the chat, like what's resonating with you right now, and who has any questions, or who has any kind of ever struggles with business development. And I'm going to share some questions that people have sent in and asked me about business development. And then, but yeah, if you ever had, so basically knowing how to do biz dev is probably the most important thing. And so I want to make sure these questions are relatable to you too. So just ask questions in the chat too. So one of my questions, this is, I'm a newer recruiter, but I don't know how to find solid clients in order to build my business. And I feel like I just spam email folks, and there has to be a better way. Okay, so I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to get to Larry's question as well, because that's a great question. Okay, so and I want to show you an example of the spamming because what I'm moving to a couple of other slides here, because this is an example of how sometimes people feel like they're spamming, but different messages get to different people. And these two examples are replies from the same exact cold email. So if you can see on the left, this person basically called me an egotistical B word. It said, "I'm quite capable of operating my own business." The same exact email got the other reply, which was, "Sure, would be happy to chat." So the thing is, with outbound sales, you're going to hit people at different times, right? So yeah, Lord have mercy, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to go back to let me go back to the slides here. Okay. We're going to go back to biz dev, and let me answer Larry's question. So Larry said, retain search versus contingency. Where is the market going? My answer to that is this goes back to, with your visioning, you want to know the two questions to ask yourself are, one, what do you want to accomplish from your business? And the other one is, how do you want to spend your time while you're getting there? Okay, because I think the question of retained versus contingency is a very personal one on how you want to run your business. Because sometimes so benefits of retained are you get money up front, and there are many different ways. There are different structures to do retained search. Now, some people prefer contingency search because they don't necessarily want the pressure of being attached to somebody who they might not get. Like if you're doing a 3-part retainer, say you're getting some money up front, they might not necessarily want to be attached to that person. So there's definitely, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a way that the market's going. I mean, I think there's always going to be there's going to always be hiring managers or companies that want contingent for whatever reason. They don't want to pay the upfront fee. I think the important thing is, if you do decide to do retained, or otherwise known as or called financially committed searches, that the key is knowing how to sell them, knowing how to sell a financially committed search, and understanding what the benefits are truly, because there truly are benefits to the client. One being that you're going to be able to control the messaging. I mean, this is a huge benefit that a lot of people don't necessarily think about to answer to share, that is that contingent versus retained, if people are retained and using you to help message. So otherwise, because if you look at it, like, there are long-term benefits to controlling the candidate experience and controlling the messaging versus having a whole bunch of contingent recruiters just out there kind of in whatever way that they are messaging about the client. So that is pretty much the main benefit. I hope that answers your question, Larry. If you have other questions about retained versus contingency, let me know and put it in the chat. And then I'm going to just put my link tree in here again for more. If you want more contact afterwards. Okay, so Denise asked, a biz dev plan for increasing direct hire business. We have a sales team, but I'm the recruiter and I have responsibilities to build direct hire business as well. Denise, are you also doing staffing? I'm curious. Is your current business Is your current business direct hire and you're looking to expand the direct hire? Or are you doing something else? Okay, so you're staffing and you want to add direct hire. Is that what you're saying? Okay. So I get this question a lot. It's pretty interesting. And I'm curious too, like if you can put in the chat, Denise, what are you trying to accomplish by adding more direct hire? And from my experience, because I did the way that I look at it is not in a way that you're necessarily pitching to your clients, but you're talking to, because a lot of times it's the same person, right? Like it's the same contact who's doing temp and also doing direct hire. So the way that I look at it is, how can you solve your client's problem? Like how can you solve your prospect's problem? And sometimes it is through contracting and sometimes it's through direct hire. It might be through sometimes people have an embedded search um, business model, but really the way that I would, and obviously like I would need to know more about you specifically to help you to make a plan. But a lot of times it's telling people what you do, right? So, or asking them, like when you're talking to your clients, you want to know. So say if I had clients if I had, okay, we did direct hire, but our owner made an official decision last year and we want to grow this division. I would start with the clients that you already have. And I would find out what their entire hiring landscape is. And I don't know if I know Kim Henderson is talking about her client loyalty and expansion strategies in the FDE plus. She is a great resource for that because you want to understand with each client what your client share is. Direct hire is great because you're going to get that it's profit, but also like, I mean, staffing is really like bread and butter and consistency. So, but you want to talk to your clients and have a scorecard with all of your clients to find out what the big picture is. Okay, so I look at it like in biz dev, I approach it by finding out what are their pain points, what are their needs. If I'm staffing, if I'm doing temp staffing for a client, I want to understand too. Like I don't want to just silo and only be talking to them about their temp staffing. If I'm wanting to add direct hire, I want to know what else they're doing. Like I want to know, how are they handling their direct hire needs? I want to know, what is their entire recruiting spend? What is their entire, and what are their goals? Like it depending on like if you're talking to the hiring manager or if you're talking to talent, you want to understand when you're talking to people what they're measured on, like what are their metrics, and then how can you help them. So the first thing I would do is I'd go to all your current clients because it's often the same people, and I would want to know how they're solving their direct hire needs. That's what I would do first. And then, I mean, if you want to talk about more, like we can, and if you have specific questions, Denise, like feel free to answer in that. But that's the first thing that I would do is I would go to all the people that you're already working with and make it more organic instead of like completely separate and siloed. Okay, I'm going to answer. Let's see. So Catherine's question is, for someone new to staffing, what's your recommendation on how to start? Direct hire, contingency staffing, or VMS? Okay. So I recommend starting with staffing. And it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. It's been pretty interesting to me because I just started in staffing because of what I mentioned before, because I wanted to build something with recurring revenue that was actually an asset. Like the thing with contingency or direct hire, even retained, is that you're starting over every single month, right? Like you're basically it's very, you might build a relationship with your clients, but it's still transaction based. And it's also one of the reasons I love temp staffing is it's because it's something that really your clients can't do for themselves. because who has heard before from a client, we've decided we're going to take our recruiting in-house, right? Like who hasn't heard that? But the thing is with temp staffing, it's more, you're really doing more than that. You're doing more than just the recruiting. You're also payrolling the people, and and if you need help on that, you use any, there are companies that will help you to do that. They'll fund the payroll, they'll do all of the compliance and everything. But it's something that like really like there's legal implications of having long-term temps. It's really something that clients can't do themselves. So whereas when you're doing other kinds of recruiting, like direct hire or even an RPO or embedded model, often you will hear we've decided to take this in-house, but clients can't really do that with temp. So that's one of the reasons why I like contracting or staffing. And the other reason is, there are two other main reasons. One is that you can have a recurring revenue stream that you can count on, and you have you have a lot more consistency and insanity. If you look at sanity, if you look at it this way, you can look at it if you're kind of deciding between what business model to do, or you're adding staffing. What would be okay, what is your break even point? And what bills would you like to monthly know that you can count on paying? And then you can back that through. So say you've got a contract and say the person is, I'm just calculating here, say the person's making $100 an hour, that's the pay rate. And then your total cost is about $119 an hour. And then you're paying them $150 an hour. So that's going to be $31 an hour profit. And in that case scenario, say it's like a software engineer or something like that. So you could look at that, back that out. So that's going to be about $5,000 a month in profit. So that's one way to look at it, that you're going to be having that consistent revenue. So those are the two main things. One is you're doing something that they actually can't really do for themselves. And the second one is that you're getting recurring revenue. And then the third one is you're building an asset. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't really know. I'm not really my goal isn't really an exit, but you still want to have that. You still want to have that option, and you want to build a business that is actually, because you're doing this work anyway. And so you want to build something that's an asset so that you could sell it, that you're building up something really of value. Okay. So Catherine, I hope that answers your question. And then again, if anyone wants to dig in further, I know I'm talking fast because the time does go by really fast, and I want to make sure that I answer your questions. Okay. So anyway, I put my link tree in there. And then you can even message me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer your questions on LinkedIn. And then let's see. So is it Chica? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And Chica asked, what would you say your deal pipeline looked like for getting to 8 figures? What percentage was direct hire, and what percentage was temp staffing? And how often did you use retained search? It was like 95% temp staffing. We didn't really do direct hire. So we usually had about 650 to 800 temps working at any given time. So it was, we had a lot of people. Our roles were not like super high paying. They were generally about average was about $25 an hour pay rate. We even had people who were closer to minimum wage. So we did have, and they were clerical positions, but in a very niche. So so mostly, direct hire was really just very negligible. And then deal pipeline. I'm not sure how to answer that question. How the deal pipeline look. We had, but I will tell you, we had a mix of, and I know Catherine had asked this too about VMS. We did have, originally it was no VMS. It was all direct, and then clients started adding VMS, so that as they did that, we operated VMS separately. So that's something we basically, we didn't want to deviate from we had a pretty high touch, even though the positions were not like super high level. We had a pretty boutique, high touch model. So when we decided to play in the VMS space and work with VMS MSP programs, what we decided to do was make it a completely separate division, and to handle that really high volume, low margin staffing. And we operated it completely differently, so that eventually we actually sold off that division. So because we did it completely separately and spun it off. Okay, so Peter said, I have an EOR that is amazing. Feel free to share. Let us know who you're using. And yeah, that is, and it's funny because when I started, like I literally, we had no experience really in anything. I had a degree in French literature, and we didn't know about workers' comp or any of this stuff. So funny story is that we had gone to our husband's 10-year high school reunion, and we were already like in the millions in our revenue. And we had just gotten started. We learned everything on the go. And we ran into his reunion was in Milwaukee. We ran into somebody who was working at Manpower, and his name was Mario. And he said, yeah, I want to start my own agency. I just want to get more experience. And we were, for us, we were just like, I don't know, we just had like gone for it. And I don't know if he ever actually opened up his own agency. So we didn't even know about EORs, which is employer of record. They will also fund your payroll. And in my link tree, if anybody wants an introduction, let me know. And I see Peter's using Ascend. Ascend is one of the groups that we partner with. Let me know. And there's different EORs that work well for different kinds of employees. Also, some are no recourse, where you're not penalized if they don't collect. Some pay your profit up front. So there's very different, but Ascend is a great partner too. So just let me know. There's actually a link in my link tree to get introduced to an EOR. So feel free to do that. But it's great. If you don't know, they do all of your compliance. It makes it very, very, very manageable and affordable to be able to fund payroll and get into it. And that's something that people don't really necessarily understand. So a lot of times, just to back up a little bit to the question about what to start with, and if it's direct hire or temp, a lot of people seem to think that it's easier to start with direct hire. But what happens is, which is pretty interesting, it was actually Francis from Ascend, and I had recently had this conversation, that for some reason it's harder for people to transition to temp once they've done direct hire. So I'm not exactly sure why, and I'd like to figure that out and really change that, because temp is so much more because the benefits of temp that I shared. But really, I would say that the quickest that you can get into that, if you are interested in staffing, the quickest way that you just get into it fast and don't hesitate, because direct hire may seem simpler, but if you are working with an EOR, there's that takes away a lot of the complication. And direct hire can get it's sort of like crack, like it can get addicting. It's very like you get really high highs and you get really low lows, and as quickly as you can get into that temp, I would do that. Okay. Are there any other questions that I haven't answered? Do you feel that more employers will be using contractors in 2025? Patricia asked. Oh yeah, I mean, they say like it's I think that the prediction is that like it's like over 50% of the workforce by 2030 is going to be contracting or temp. So yes, I definitely feel that that's always been like a trend that's just, I don't think is ever, I mean, I don't know about ever, but is not particularly, doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. Okay. What else? Let me see if there's any other questions that I missed. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions that I missed. So feel free to just keep on typing in your questions, and I'm going to go to the next slide then. Okay, so here's some other questions. A lot of them around business development. And so we're going to move over here. So really knowing like your business development strategy. That's one thing I help people with is creating a full biz dev strategy. And one of the, I like to say about this, and that's why I have all these different examples here, is because a lot of people are going to tell you there's like one way to do it, right? Or that they have like the blueprint or the system. I don't really believe in that, because what I really believe is that from my experience, individuals have different methods that work for them. Okay. So what I like to do with people is I really help to understand like what their personality is, because sometimes now, like with all of, especially now, like there's a lot of cold email. Everybody's doing MPCs. Everybody's doing cold email. Everybody's doing LinkedIn messaging. So really the differentiator is being yourself. Okay. So having a tight niche, having solid niche market fit is essential to really growing, to getting when you have a good niche and when you have niche market fit. And a lot of people are afraid to niche down, but when you do it, things just completely change. Everything kind of changes. So that is one differentiator, but you might be in a niche that other people are doing. You likely are. So really, it's not so much what you're doing, whether it's cold email or LinkedIn messaging or email sequences, all of that works. Okay. All of that works, but it's got to be done right. And it used to be that consistency was more important than copy. But now I think it's on my link tree. I have an exercise on finding your tone of voice in your copy. That is the biggest differentiator, because it's a cliche, but this is a relationship driven business, and just sounding human will cut through what everybody else is saying. Okay. Then there's other methods too. There's talking to candidates, which is another reason why I like temp staffing so much and contracting, because talking to candidates is a great way to see who else is hiring contractors. It's also a great way to you can also get direct hire clients that way as well. Reference checking is something that is back to the basics that most people forget about. So I always on a first call with a candidate, ask for references. Okay. They might not give them to you, so that's the worst that can happen, but let them know, okay, I might market you to other clients, right? Because you don't want, and this is one of the best parts about having a niche, is that you're able to MPC people, you're able to put people in present them for multiple roles. Okay. So reference checking, if you get anything out of this presentation, go back to the basics and reference checking, and have a system. And we do have a system in my program on this, on how to reference check for biz dev. That is how I got my very first client. I interviewed someone. I didn't even know, like I didn't even really understand what people did in my niche. I figured it out by interviewing people. My first person I asked, my very first interview, I asked her for references. I called her references. And that's how I got my first client, who was one of our biggest clients for years. So reference checking is a fantastic way that is so underutilized. I mean, look, like we are dealing with people. We have all of these dots that we can connect. And so sometimes people will be wondering, like, what's the best way to do biz dev? And the best is, sometimes it's the things that we have in front of us that people will ignore. People often will think that they don't have warm leads. Okay, I guarantee you everybody has warm leads. Or a common thing is that people will kind of downplay or say, like, well, everything's been from referrals. There are ways to structure around and build systems around your referrals that can become a really solid business strategy. Okay, so Mark said, in Canada, we don't do references anymore, as they're not allowed for privacy reasons. The best you can hope for is verifying they work there from date to date. Yeah, I mean, references still work here. I mean, like employers are, yes, like employers are supposed to just verify, but you still get, I mean, it still works. It is still solid and it still works. I don't know about in Canada, but they're not allowed to say that really here in the US either, but they do. And even calling and verifying that they worked there is is a way to get somebody on the phone, right? So like anyway, it does work, even though there are HR rules and people aren't supposed to do it. I mean, they do. It does still work here. So I mean, the worst that they can say is that we can't do it or we can't verify dates. But then also, you're getting, by asking for references, you're also getting information that's really valuable information, because you're understanding who they've worked for before, and those are leads and contacts. Yeah, Larry said, I worked for two 60K employee engineering firms and we did no references. I mean, references are really important. They work. I would definitely, but they are totally ignored. Okay, this is something, I'm sharing this quote because this is one of my clients. And what I want to say is that people will ask, and I'm not trying to like show this to like, boast or anything, but she said, obsessed with your advice to do what's working. It's working as always. Okay. And that's because, and this was this was a client who came to me and said, I want to know the best way to do biz dev. What we worked on was going through the things that had worked for her. And we went through and we figured out with her own personality what was going to be the best for her. And she recently, she did about $600,000 in her first, I think it was her first 4 months of business. And a lot of it is consistency too. The same client, we're still working together. And twice in our experiences together, she said to me, it's been 2 months and I haven't closed anything. What do I do? And this is the part that goes back to the consistency. This is another thing that a lot of people will be a downfall, is that they don't realize sometimes sales is boring. Like sometimes there's a lot of monotony. Biz dev is about systems. It's about discipline, right? And so I talked to her last week, and she says, or she texted me, I think on Monday, it's the same exact thing happened. So she said to me last week, I haven't closed anyone in a month or something. She texted me, she closed two contracts on Monday. So it is that, like, it's not always about trying to find the next thing. Sometimes it's just repetition and consistency. Okay. And I know we're almost out of time. So Courtney, if you want to pop in at any time. And I would also say consistency is more important than perfection. So that's one thing that I would probably leave you with, is just making sure that you're consistent. Anyway, I know I'm almost out of time, so I'm gonna I won't keep sharing my screen. I feel like I was maybe kind of all over the place, but if there's any last burning questions or anything like that, and happy to answer.
No worries. We appreciate it. It was great advice. The chat was on fire. Does anyone else have any other questions for Diane before she leaves us for today? Really good questions so far this entire session. So that's amazing. They're all questioned out, Diane. They asked you it all during the time.
All right. Oh, hey, Josh. Thank you. Great to see you. I'm so glad you're here. And yeah, if anybody wants further like thinks about questions or anything, or what it's like, I did sell my first agency for $28 million to a public staffing company, and then built another one. We had built that to $35 million in revenue, and sold that to the former chairman of Adecco. And I've also had a couple of VMS agencies as well. And so happy to answer anybody's questions on how to actually build a business and get what you want out of it. And thanks so much for Crelate and having me here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Diane. Have a wonderful day. And if you could send that deck over, we'll make sure we get it out to everybody, because that is the most common question thus far. So thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Bye.
All right. Have a great day. If you missed any part of it, don't forget to subscribe to our show so you don't miss anything upcoming. And if you like this valuable content, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share it with your network and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Together, we're building a community of growth and learning. Until next time.